Louise here from Boost Your Career, and welcome to Boost Talk. Today I'm in conversation with Jan Sky, who is the director at Brain Potential, where leadership training is powered by neuroscience. And Jan and I are in conversation around the topic of unlock your brain, empower your mind. And we're talking all things related to the negative self-talk loops that women in particular find themselves engaged in, and how best to escape that negative self-talk to be more confident, to speak up and out, to plan our futures and be more strategic. And one of the things that Jan talked about that absolutely thrilled me was have a meeting with yourself. That when the amygdala, the CEO of emotions, takes over and starts telling us that we can't, we're not good enough, we shouldn't, she suggests that we take a breath and simply have a meeting with ourselves and ask, where's that coming from and how can we do better? So welcome to Boost Talk. Enjoy, and I'll see you over on the website boostyourcareer.com.au. Good morning, welcome to Boost Talk. Louise here from Boost Your Career. And today I'm in conversation with Jan Sky, who's the director at Brain Potential, where they do leadership training powered by neuroscience. Welcome, Jan.
Oh, thank you, Louise. It's lovely to be here.
Today's topic is rather large, I understand that. We're calling it Unlock Your Brain, Empower Your Mind. I think it's a fantastic title, and it gives us such a broad range of experiences to discuss. But Jan, I thought before we get into that, I'd love to hear more about your own career journey and what is it that landed you in the field of neuroscience?
Oh, my goodness, my career journey. Well, I guess it started when I left school and got into teachers' college, but then my dad had died when I was 14, and my mum said, "Oh, I can't afford to keep you." So I didn't do the 3 or 4 years that was entailed in teaching and did a 1-year secretarial course. So I was a secretary for a short time until I got sick of the shorthand and typing and the making cups of tea, and I went into sales. I then went into sales management, training, and always had this fascination about the brain and the mind. And, if you actually believe something, it could happen. And particularly in sales, when we had to meet targets and things like that, even though we put all our strategies in place, if the belief system wasn't there. So then I got into hypnotherapy, then to counseling. And then, and I must go back a bit. When I was doing hypnotherapy, I used some of the techniques on my sales team. And we were New South Wales, I was in Sydney at the time, so we were New South Wales state winners for 3 years in a row.
So you had unlocked the brains, empowered the minds.
Wasn't too sure how I was doing it back then, but I tried hard. But then more recently, I thought I really need to know the science behind all of what I'm using here. And so I studied applied neuroscience, and I graduated 4 years ago. I graduated at oh no, it was 5 years ago now, because I'm about to tell you my age. Is that all right?
Of course.
I graduated when I was 70. I was the oldest in the class.
Fantastic. Was it science behind the truth that you already knew because you're already having success with the hypnotherapy?
Oh, no, it was much more than that. It was all about the brain, how it grows and develops, the different parts of the brains, their function, how they all interact with each other, the dominance of some parts when we're stressed, when we're frightened, the dominance of other parts when we're constant. It just was amazing. I absolutely loved it.
It is. It's an incredible muscle that we tend to overlook a lot as we're developing our professional careers, which is a shame, because that old adage that the only thing that stops us is ourselves is probably what shaped the title of today's conversation, that we hold ourselves back through our own belief systems and attitudes. And in Boost Your Career, I talk a lot about women holding agency with their voice, their confidence, themselves, their own self-awareness and authenticity, and making plans for the future. And we talk a lot about how women tend to measure themselves against everyone time and find themselves coming up lacking. So I suppose my question is that what your experience is? And what's happening in our brain that triggers that response?
I go back to my example when I
Yep.
I got into teachers college, but then mum said, because mum didn't work, she was a widow and on a widow's pension. And bless her heart, she did everything to get me what I needed. When she said, I just can't afford to keep you for those 3 years, you need to do something else, I guess I felt, maybe I'm not good enough or I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
worthy enough. Now, where's that stored? In your brain, that's stored with a little guy, and she's called the amygdala. And the amygdala is like the CEO of all emotional content. So how I felt at the time was stored in there. And so that happened then, 17, 18 years of age. But then many other points during my life, and I'm hoping that the viewers are able to understand this, there are other things that came up, not the fact that they couldn't get in or their mother couldn't afford to pay for them or what, but many other little triggers came up where I went, oh, I'm not as good as, I didn't have the education that person had. I wasn't, I'm not.
Yeah.
Make sense? And
So
it's,
many negatives. That self-talk is what you're
yes,
talking about. Yeah.
yeah. But where did it start and where is it stored? And it's held in the brain really forever until we can manage to overcome it.
So we can overcome it, is what you're saying.
Mm. Oh,
Because
yes.
I think what happens is women in particular are often trap themselves in that cycle of self-talk that is negative and that
Mm.
does downplay. I'm cognizant that innate male strengths tend, most of the time, in workplaces to be the things that allow for success. And I'm advocating that the innate female strengths are things that we can leverage. And I'm not sure that we are, because I think we get trapped in that concept of I can't do that. I'm not the man. I don't have those strengths. And what you're telling me is that gets trapped in my amygdala, and I need to do something active in order to overcome that. Yeah?
Sure. And so the feeling comes up, so the emotion,
The emotion.
and what we can do is to understand that emotion belonged to me back when I was 17, when I was 7 years old, I'm a 50-year-old woman today, or I'm a 35-year-old woman today. I think females, by and large, are more driven emotionally
Yep.
from their heart, whereas men are more driven strategically from their
Yeah.
head.
Mm.
And there's a great marry of the two, a mix of the two in the business world, if both parties will accept, respect, and realize each other's strengths along with their weaknesses.
Yeah. It is. It's no wonder that inclusion's become the buzzword these days. Used to be diversity, now it's inclusion. And it makes so much more sense to me because of that kindness around and towards other people, that recognition of difference can
Yeah.
be the very thing that will allow everyone to succeed. Yeah.
Mm.
Does that sum up what you're thinking there?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Does it does it then follow? So if I continue down that pathway of women generally pitting themselves against everyone else and finding themselves lacking. There's a whole other layer to that, which is around the impact that we have on people around us and how we can then get trapped in a particular cycle of behaviors. So I'm interested in the concept that our impact isn't always the intent that we have. And that as women in the workplace, there can be often a huge difference in where we think we're headed and the impact that we actually have. Is that something that we can use, unlock our brains in order to be better at, I suppose, to be conscious of that?
And to bring in some inner strength and
Yeah.
confidence. Yes.
Okay.
Let's say your boss was calling you in to have a meeting.
Yeah.
No real reason. You weren't given a reason, but you had to have this meeting.
Okay.
Now, in the female brain, I believe we would analyze, criticize, bring up anything that maybe has happened in the last
What have I
24
done?
hours, week, month.
What have I
It's
done?
my fault. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Whereas a man would, because we're
Unknown caller.
emotionally driven. Excuse that little bird in the background. I just put it to sleep. We are emotionally driven, and that's why we go to the emotional side. Whereas a man would probably go, oh, it's probably that promotion they're going to give me, or there's very strategic, very forthright, not considered that some feelings might be involved. Now, I'm generalizing when I'm talking like
Yes, of
this. I'm
course.
not intending in any way to say men don't have feelings or women
Yes.
can't strategically plan. Not at all. But in terms of our brain function, the female brain is different to the male brain. You know, look at the fact that we have children and we're the ones who have to nurture that child. Yes, the man is doing a lot today by way of stepping in as the real home dad and those sort of things. But they're not by nature the nurturer. They don't feed the baby through their own body. They don't give birth through their own body. And that's why women are as they are and men are as they are here. But going back to the question you asked before I went down a bit of a rabbit hole there, I think that if that happens, that the boss says, come in for a meeting, we need to have a meeting with ourselves first.
Oh, I love that concept.
Maybe give
Yes.
ourselves a really good self-talk of what it could be rather than what it might be. Makes sense?
It does make sense. But how do we do that? Okay, given the amygdala, CEO of emotions, has now well and truly taken over because the boss has invited me in and I've immediately gone to, perhaps the last 2 years of what have I done wrong? How do I stop that? I love have a meeting with yourself. What does that look like? What does that feel like?
Well, the brain communicates through via these neural pathways. There's a massive neural network in there. So when the amygdala is giving us the negative emotions, there's neural network going up to the right prefrontal cortex that's looping around. And when you combine negative emotions with creativity, you get catastrophe. So what we've got to do is
please
pull
say
it.
that again. Please say that again. How do you get catastrophe?
When you combine negative emotions coming from the amygdala
Yep.
with right prefrontal cortex, which is creative,
Yep.
you combine those two, you get catastrophe. So you start
Okay.
catastrophizing. So
Bicey.
you've got
Okay.
self-awareness needs to be introduced here. Self-awareness, saying, I'm catastrophizing over this. Let me stop. Let me engage in some fundamental basic thinking around maybe some other possibilities that the boss might want to speak to me about. It could be that really positive interaction I had with another member of another team last week. It might simply be to tell me something else. And the reality is, I don't know. So the meeting with yourself is to clear your mind of all negativity, to go in being neutral and in the moment, and ready to listen with open ears and address the questions that the boss may put before you.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love the whole concept of having a meeting with self. My experience around emotional intelligence tells me that as soon as I name something, my brain will kick into gear. So if I question that emotion, if I question, that the brain will hear me questioning and ask me why. You say, well, it could be this, could be that. Okay, so you're suggesting an inner talk that
Yes.
is prompted by your own thought patterns. That's the unlocking, isn't it, really?
Mm.
Wow, I love that. Any other ways that you can approach that meeting? Like for me, first of all, I'd have to recognize that I was being negative in my emotion. So it's like, oops, Louise, negative feelings here. How else? I need to take a breath. How else can I view this? Or what are all the options here? Are there certain questions that you ask yourself in that meeting that help you?
I hadn't thought of a range of questions, Louise, but I believe self-recognition or self-awareness is the key to change. And so that's got to
Okay.
be our first step.
Yep.
Then recognizing what is it? Oh, it's negative emotions that I'm rattling on with here that is going round and round in my brain. Do I need to change it to positive, or do I need to strategically look at what possibilities there could be? Or another question can be, do I need to just go in with an open mind?
Yeah. Be present.
Be present.
Because, we started with this whole thing that women are constantly judging themselves against all sorts of standards and against all sorts of other people, which in itself is a whole way of thinking. So it sort of makes sense then if I'm doing that I would instantly jump to negatives because I would be checking myself for what I've done wrong.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. So the way forward is a shift in the questions I'm asking myself and the way that I'm approaching conversations, engagements with other people. Is that fair?
Very well put, because think about it, if we go into a meeting with so many thoughts in our head, and by the way, we can't not think.
Yeah.
Thinking is a brain process.
Yeah.
So we want to, in that meeting, be very present. So training our brain to, I like to say, down regulate, or to be calm.
Calm. Okay. Training your brain to be calm. Okay. Tell all. How do we do that?
Well, now here's another process. We need to spend time being mindful. Now,
Okay.
some people have meditation practices, and that's fabulous. I still, although I do meditate, I still haven't mastered it to the way that meditators do. But I do find time in my day, of a night when I first get into bed, um, at a time when I'm feeling a little bit anxious, to just sit away from all screens and focus my breath. When I focus my breath, I'm counting the in, the hold, and the out to a number. And usually it's 3, just to begin with. when we think about what we can control, there's a lot of things that are outside of our control, but we can control our breathing. And we know that when we're anxious, upset, panicky, we will have a fast breath rate because our heart's pumping, our lungs are
Yes.
going in and out more quickly. So we need to stabilize that. And it calms the brain because we've focused on something we can take control of.
Mm.
But as I say, I do it, I spin around from my chair so I'm not looking at the computer screen. Close my eyes, that's always helps. And then I just calm my breath. And in that moment of calmness, and it doesn't take too long, you can do it for a few minutes if you've got a few minutes, but even 30 seconds is enough to just train that brain to change the thinking, to change the thoughts. And you can
Mm.
give yourself some powerful messages when you're calm.
I love that. I too practice breathing. I think, I know it sounds ridiculous. We all breathe. Yep, sure we do. We don't breathe in a way that allows us to be strategic, to
Mm.
take that breath in, and I call it, the Hufford and Lensky, get up on the balcony and see things from a different angle. And I often hear women in particular say to me, particularly if we go back to the instance of the boss, that I need to do that instantly. I have to go. And I say, in that moment, just take a breath.
Mm.
Literally breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. And it can be a very short 30 seconds, as you said, it could be even less.
Mm.
And that will clear the brain so that you're more calm. And you're right, when we're calm, we make better decisions. We listen with both ears. It's a
Mm.
great state to be in.
And when we listen intently, we have the ability, particularly as females, to hear more than what's being said
Yeah.
because we're quite good at reading facial features and body language.
Yeah. Catch the nuance of the conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I believe women limit their own power through the negative self-talk, through the amygdala hijack, because
Mm.
that does keep us locked into our emotions, which I'm not sure that we use well enough. Like, I know
Mm.
people always say, you don't be too emotional. For me, it's like, surely that emotion is what's allowing me to tap into that person opposite. Surely that emotional response is what's allowing me to think further ahead, to make
Mm.
connections. So I don't see the emotions as the issue. I think the word calm is just beautiful. That
Mm.
take the breath, your emotions are still there, and you're going to leverage them to
Yeah,
perhaps use different language, perhaps have a different impact on the
yeah.
person opposite.
I totally agree with you. A person without emotions is an expressionless person. and
Yeah, yeah,
and we want to have expressions and we want to
yes.
feel free in a workplace situation that's called psychologically safe to be able to express our emotions. I think when another person refers to don't be so emotional, they're probably not used to handling other people's emotions, or
Yeah.
maybe they're
Or
not,
their own.
or their own. That's true. Yeah. Oh, I mean, we talked a lot about the amygdala. The amygdala remembers how you felt at that a time way back when, or when something occurred. But there's another little guy called the hippocampus, and when those two female characters in our brain get together, because the hippocampus brings back the memory of the scene when my mother told me that she couldn't afford to keep me for 3 years in teachers college, or when something else happened, when I remember I'd won a dancing contest as a little girl, and my name was in the paper. Mind you, it was a local paper that had about 4 pages to it. It was right at the back past the sports in just a column, and my name was there. And I got a red pen and I circled and I went, it must have been 12. And he went, oh, you don't do that. Now, what he meant was, you don't go bragging about yourself. But I took it that I wasn't good enough. And that moment has come up for me. And then my mother reinforced it. But many times in my life, when my book was first published and I got all the copies delivered to my garage, and I went, but what if I'm speaking at a conference and there's people there who know more than me? And I
Yeah.
had to have that meeting with myself at that point.
Yeah.
Saying that there's always going to be someone in your life, Jan, who knows more than you. In fact, thousands of people in this world know more than you. And if you don't know, you'll say you don't, but you'll find out.
Oh, how gorgeous. It's funny, we just get pulled right back. You mentioned psychological safety there, and that the way we feel at work and our ability to be comfortable, to be authentic, to own our own emotions. Are there any tips around how we can work towards ensuring others are psychologically safe? Because part of my being is that if we emulate, if we do, others will follow.
Well, I believe when we're looking at keeping others psychologically safe, that allow them to express themselves without putting them down. Respect and kindness and gratitude and praise where needed to those other people are things that contribute to a person's sense of self and sense of belonging in a workplace. There are some things in a workplace that are outside of our control. Like if we have, for example, a boss who's quite aggressive or obnoxious or whatever word we want to choose, it's not our job to change that person's personality, but it is our job to step back and go, well, how can I better respond? How can I better react to that situation?
Yeah.
And there are 4 fundamental things that support psychological safety in an individual, i.e., gives you the strength to feel this way. First thing is quality sleep. And if you're
Yeah.
not getting a good night's sleep, you know what it's like if you wake up and you go, that was the worst night I ever had.
Yep.
Quality sleep, if you're not getting good quality sleep, do something about it. Nutritious food. Ensure that, stressful situations in the workplace can see you picking up takeaways from time to time. If you do that, make sure they're nutritious ones, or do some food prep, but eat healthy and drink plenty of water. Some form of movement, and I avoid saying exercise because that to some people means the gym, and I think if you gave me a gym pass, I might vomit, but no. So walk around the block, yoga, movement of some description. And the 4th one, brain relaxation. And that can be done by mindfulness exercise. It's fabulous things on the internet, on YouTube around mindfulness. And one little tip, I'm not associated with the organization, but they are fantastic. The app called Smiling Mind, free,
Okay.
created by 2 Australian guys. It is fabulous. Smiling Mind.
Smiling mind. I love the concept. I get a visual instantly.
Yeah.
I'd like my brain to be smiling. Do you know, when you talk about mindfulness, though, something that springs up for me is we use our screens all the time. And, I asked you what are some of the things that we can do to support people around us and to emulate psychological safety and mindfulness. They're all really simple health, mind body health
They are.
focus. And the biggest one that I think people forget is to give their brain time to unwind.
Mm,
That, I used to say when I was working very long hours, I used to say, oh, the only thing that stops my brain is just sitting in front of television. Yeah, sure, Louise. Except it's continuing to fire
yeah,
because of all because of all of that. It took years to learn that one. That just turn everything off. Just if it's washing the dishes, not using the dishwasher, if it's going for a walk, these are the things that will still the mind. And it's so remarkable the creativity that can occur when you allow that moment of stillness. I love
absolutely.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is a huge topic. I know we're talking about unlocking the brain and empowering the mind, but I think the biggest takeaway here is that it's all in your hands,
Yeah.
that you can do things. And I love Smiling Mind. I get that you're not connected with Smiling Mind, the app, but anything that will create mindfulness for people is a win in my book. I think
Mm.
it's a very good idea.
There's a little saying that I adopted years ago, and I can't remember who the originator of it was, but
Yep.
you can have or be or do anything you want. You just have to believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. We hold our futures in our hands, and we need to do everything in our power to create a sustainable and successful future for ourselves in all aspects of
Mm.
our lives. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jan. It's been an absolute delight. This is such a big topic, and I'm delighted that you were able to spend some time with us. So thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure, Louise. Thank you.
Hello, Louise Phelan here, and you've been listening to yet another Boost Talk, and I know you loved it. These women are being so generous with their time and their experience and their expertise, and it's great to have their perspective on their career enhancement strategies for women in this post-pandemic hybrid workplace that we find ourselves in. So for more information, head on over to our website, boostyourcareer.com.au, and I'll see you there.